Hi everyone, sorry I can't be with you tonight. I've recorded a quick summary of where I think things are currently in the fire service. Um, Here in the background is my old fire station that is now houses. Um, Gives you a clue what I'm talking about. So the obvious thing about fire service cuts is the closing of fire stations and removing fire engines, which we've already seen plenty of over the last decade, and there are also less obvious sides to it, including reducing crew sizes from 5 to 4 on the fire engines. The fifth crew member was introduced historically to act as a safety officer for breathing apparatus teams following some firefighter deaths. And the cutting of this safety margin should really be a cause of great alarm to firefighters and also the fire authorities who have responsibility for the safety of their firefighters. Um, I think that's not being given the level of attention that it deserves. Partly partly due to denial. Nobody in the fire service wants to think that they're not going to go home at the end of their shift. And partly through demoralisation, really, that people feel that there is no way of affecting change currently. So we're currently seeing the effect of cuts that involve watch managers being removed from the fire engines. Half of their numbers are being cut essentially, and the other half being placed into fast cars. This has all been done at great expense in purchasing the cars, in overtime bills. Essentially, it's not working, but there's a refusal from management to accept that. So, as much as it's cutting firefighter numbers and the standard of our service, it's not actually reducing the cost. That's also being masked, I believe, by additional money coming into the fire service in COVID grants. So we're going to really see this bite hard, I think, in the next couple of years. So you may have seen these red cars knocking around the area over the last couple of years or so. The model was sold on the basis that 4 on a fire engine plus the one in the car is the same as 5 on a fire engine. In reality, or in practice, that's there's simply not enough firefighters in the system to make it work and to crew the resources that we have. So that either means the cars being sat idle or fire engines being knocked off the run. It's causing delays and shortages in crews attending incidents, impacting on the ability for firefighters to take their annual leave, ability to complete effective training and assessment, massive effect on morale, ultimately stress and sickness levels as well. So delays in the full attendance at incidents is an important one. And this is often hidden behind publishing the attendance times of the first fire engine in a kind of stop the clock kind of method of recording. So if you imagine a small bin fire in a park, for example, this would just require 1 fire engine and the attendance time wouldn't be particularly critical. Whereas a house fire with somebody trapped requires 3 fire engines urgently, all 3. When the first fire engine arrives and the clock is stopped, then and then there's a big delay in the second and third arriving, the crews and the incident commanders are placed or can be placed in a moral dilemma where they've got a choice of intolerable risk to the crews themselves or essentially standing back and watching people burn to death, which is sometimes the stark choice that we face. There's been an increasing number of incidents like this in the last few years. There was a job in Thornton recently that I was involved in where I think the first fire engine arrived only after about 14 minutes. There was another one, Illingworth kind of area, where a watch manager in a car arrived on his own with no ability, resources to fight the actual fire with. Embarrassingly, a neighbour was tackling it with a hose pipe, and the fire engine took a long time to actually arrive. That manager's described it as the worst moment in his career, I think by a long way as well. And he will have seen plenty of other things. But that powerlessness of standing there, unable to do anything, knowing that the recorded stat says that we attended within X amount of seconds. Yeah, and the big one was a job in Ilkley overlooking the fire station, which wasn't crewed at the time, and sadly a lady lost her life. Some debate about the attendance times there, but it was about 15 minutes before anyone was with her. And if you watch living room fire demonstration on YouTube, 3 minutes is all it takes for a room to be entirely engulfed in flames from one match. So I think the extent of the problem is being hidden from the public and indeed from the councillors on the fire authority who have responsibility. And really, it's not just not just a matter of it being hidden from them. It's their role, and they are paid to actively hold fire service to account and to scrutinise this stuff. And I think this is the gap that we have. So in terms of what councils can do, there are several models of fire service governance at the moment. There's the traditional fire authority model that we still have in West Yorkshire. There's the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner in North Yorkshire. We're just about to have an election there for a new commissioner, and then there's the mayoral model in London and Greater Manchester, for example. Personally, I prefer a model with larger amounts of democracy and accountability built in. So a committee structure does allow that, but I think the political routes of holding councillors and authorities to account are massively underused, and that's by the trade unions themselves, the firefighters, and the general public, and the Labour parties in particular. Talking about the Labour movement, the Labour parties that select and elect these councillors, and we've seen factional infighting in the Labour Party taking precedence over actual effective scrutiny of effectiveness of councillors. Again, this stems back to demoralisation and people not feeling there's any point, there's no choice between councillors. Certainly in my time as an FBU rep, calls to engage with the fire authority to engage with the trade unions have largely been ignored by the majority of councillors. Counterintuitively, the Tories are often the most engaged in that process, and the Labour Party the least engaged. The odd Labour councillor that becomes well engaged with the unions seem to always coincidentally get removed from the fire authority and put into different roles at the next reshuffle. So I think there's things for us all to look at here, like how we engage in public availability of accountability. Like the fire authority meetings themselves are public meetings. I've been to a large number of them, and I've been the only member of public in the gallery. So, just no interest from even trade union reps or firefighters, let alone the general public. And the councillors don't feel under any pressure to, it seems, take it seriously. The Labour councillors always seem very well whipped And essentially, what the management of the fire service tell the fire authority chair, the Labour chair, what they say they want tends to just go through on the nod. There might be the odd question, but not really any scrutiny. And the trade unions repeatedly refused a non-voting seat on the authority. So we're reduced to a spectator role where we're not allowed to provide any challenge to what's being told to the councillors. And it's simply not good enough. Yeah, it's there's a lot of work to be done. I think, there's huge problems in the Labour Party, which is why Tusk are now meeting again. We need good people to go forward who will stand for election and not simply just get involved in political arguments, but actually spend time talking to trade unions, spend time scrutinising decisions, so that we can actually prevent some of these dangerous changes. It's obviously not just the fire service, but that's my speciality area, but also in teaching and health and all those kind of areas.